Everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Filled with Less show. I'm Cynthia Damascus.
Hello, I am Molly Sabrin, and we are so happy to be back.
Yep, we're over the moon. We got so many great emails saying that they loved our first show, and of course we love doing it, and we're having a blast.
We really are, Cynthia. I had to pinch myself sometimes because it's such a blessing to be able to spend this hour with you all talking about something so close to our hearts, which is living the Christian life with simplicity and intention. And then also to be able to bring on these voices of people who have been so influential in our own journeys, people that we have recommended, have been using as resources for our members. And then to be able to speak with them live here is just like a dream come true. So this is wonderful.
So much fun, so much fun. And you know what I love? I love that we are able to teach and coach people on things that we have learned and found useful in our lives. And it's almost like a testimony, like our lives are a testimony of the things that we are teaching people on this show, which I think just makes it go really deep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we've done recently is we took Michael Hyatt's Best Year Ever, and I've been going for years. And of course, this year it was remote. I wasn't able to go down to Nashville like Molly and I did a couple of years ago together. But every year, it's like I hear pretty much the same things every year, but I'm able to internalize them more and make them more of my life. And he always makes me think. And this year, speaking of goal setting, I think for the first time, I was really able to solidify goals better than I ever have.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. You know, it takes hearing something over and over. And I always tend to hear something different depending on what season of life I'm in.
Oh.
So each year I can hear the same message, but like you said, get something totally different out of it. So I had the same experience this year with that.
Good. I'm glad. It was definitely worth it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So I'll tell you what my 3 goals are.
Yeah.
You'll tell me yours.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, it's a deal. So first of all, I have an overriding theme, and it comes from Elder Paisios, and I wish I could remember quotes off the top of my head, but I think everyone knows his teaching about the bee being attracted to things that are good and wholesome and life-giving, as opposed to the fly that's attracted to things that aren't so, that can actually be damaging and bring our souls down. And right now, with things that are going on in the world and everything, it's so easy to be pulled into what the fly is attracted to. So the overriding theme for me is to be that bee and just, look at things that are edifying. So that's the overriding theme. The first thing I'm going to do is pay more attention to creating white space in my life. So I'm pretty good at time management, and I do have white space, but I still feel that little guilt in the back of my head that's like, Cynthia, you need to be productive. You need to get things done. What about these 50 things on your list? I need to just step aside, have that white space in there, and allow myself to breathe more. So I'm going to start practicing.
And see it as a priority. I think that's true. Giving yourself permission to say this is an intentional time.
Yeah. Like I'm going to
that
work
I've prioritized.
Really hard. Yeah, I'm going to work really hard on whatever for like 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever. But then I'm going to breathe for 15 minutes or 30 minutes and read or go for a walk or something. So that's important.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then, thanks. And then I haven't run this by you yet, but I'm personally going to incorporate a green smoothie into my day every day.
Oh.
It's one of my goals. And I think I want to do this for our community, a green smoothie challenge. What do you think?
That'd be super. Yeah, I'd love it. That'd be so fun. Send us the recipe.
Yep. Oh, yes. I'll send recipes, and I've got tons of smoothie recipes. So we'll do that. And I think that'll be really fun. And then the third thing is I've just been writing out goals for this community, for our online community, for the show community, for our membership, things that we can bring them this year, and especially this quarter, things that we can do to enhance their lives. And of course, this is all just free resources we're going to have on our website. So I'm going to focus on that this quarter.
Those are fabulous. I love it. It's inspiring to me. I love to hear what people are working on. I'm right with you with the Elder Paisios, with the Bee and the Bee. We talk a lot in Filled with Less about protecting your bubble of calm.
Yes.
And, the importance of putting up boundaries so that we're not overexposing ourselves to things that are going to lead us to despondency, and to kind of fixate on what's not working or what is, instead of fixating on what is beautiful and good. And that it takes an eternal perspective. We have to be able to think bigger than what's happening here and now,
and intention, right?
And intention. Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's like you're drawn to this like Facebook post or something like that, and you've got to go, nope, boundary, drew the line, click,
right,
and make that change intentionally.
Absolutely, which really benefits not only your own soul, but everyone you come into contact with.
Yes.
Because when you embody that, I know when I'm feeling stressed, what I want to be around is somebody who is peaceful and hopeful. And so I want to be able to be that for my family and for my parish community and for anyone I talk to. So that's a good one. So my 3 goals, and, from Michael Hyatt, we really do love the quarterly goals. We like to, that was a new concept for me, but the idea of just setting goals 1 quarter at a time instead of all year long has been really helpful for me. So my quarterly goals this year are, the first one has been adding weightlifting to my exercise routine, which has normally just been a daily walk. But my husband, Troy, he is a big weightlifter. He had a lot of back pain starting in college, and he really learned to heal his back through weightlifting. And so he's been on me to join him and just getting stronger. And so that's a goal I've set for myself in the mornings, either before or right after my walk, is weightlifting. And then also re-decluttering my home. So, most people who know me know I did that about 2 years ago, a big declutter. But now things accumulate as everybody's home, working at home, schooling at home.
Yes.
So I've, just kind of going back through and, doing one area at a time. And the third goal for me has been, I really do not like going to doctors. I've never liked it. And I tend to really procrastinate on that. But I'm at a certain age where there's some things that need to be monitored and just checked up on. And there's a lot of appointments that I've put off. So I gave myself this quarterly goal of just biting the bullet and taking care of those. And I've been using the Michael Hyatt Planner, which has the daily big 3 at the top of it. So that really helps me take bite-sized pieces of my goals by assigning, every day, what are 3 things with 3 tasks I can do to get closer to achieving those goals. So that's what I'm working on.
Those are awesome. First of all, I love that you're lifting weights, because women at our age, that's so important for bone health.
Yeah.
So important. And then number 2, I love that you're talking about the big 3 in the planner, because I had that big 3 in my Holistic Christian Life Planner too. And I've been going through a crisis because we're currently redesigning that planner for Filled with Less. It'll come out again next year. But that big 3 is a prerequisite in any planner that I'm choosing for this year. And I'm also using Michael Hyatt's at this point.
Yeah.
So those are great goals, Molly. And we can cheer each other on now, right? That's the importance of having a friend that you bring in to your goal setting, right?
Absolutely. And sharing them, writing them down, sharing them, it just ups that level of accountability, which is, so important.
It is. Yeah. It is important. I'm glad I have you for that.
Yeah, me too. And speaking of physical fitness, speaking of intentions and just renewal in general in 2021, who's on our show today? What are we talking about, Cynthia?
Well, we have some great guests and we have a great question. So first of all, For the Peaceful Mind segment, we have Dr. Roxanne Lowe, which I know is a fan favorite. People who listen to Ancient Faith probably already know her from Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls. So she's coming on. She's going to talk about, well, a peaceful mind, and we'll get into detail in that because it's all based on our new book. Then for the Healthy Body segment, I am interviewing Kosmos McLean. He's a personal trainer up in Canada. He was instrumental in making My Beautiful Advent a success this year. And I'll tell you more about that later, but he was the personal trainer for My Beautiful Advent. We're going to talk about those New Year's resolutions that have to do with setting physical fitness goals. Yeah. And then for Productive Life, the question that came in is all about morning routines. So we're going to get into answering that. And we're also going to share our own routine with all of you.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. I'm excited just to hear it.
I'm excited too. I'm excited too. So let's get to it. All right, so first, why don't we share Dr. Roxanne's bio, and then we'll bring her on. Dr. Roxanne Lowe is a licensed clinical psychologist in Jacksonville, Florida, where she uses her extensive training in private practice as a speaker with expertise in a variety of concerns, including mood disorders, anxiety disorders, marriage and parenting issues, eating disorders, body image awareness, and women's issues. She regularly presents to national groups, universities, area high schools, and church organizations around the country. And you probably know her from Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls with her husband, Father Nicholas Lowe. And I know that's a much loved podcast. And then they just came out with a new book called Renewing You. So without further ado.
Hello, and thank you, Dr. Lowe, for being with us. We are absolutely thrilled to have you. I actually saw you speak in 2019 at the Ancient Faith Women's Conference. We were both there at the same time. And I came away I took so many notes while you were talking. It's on productive thoughts. And I remember thinking, gosh, I'd love to sit down with her, pick her brain about some things, some, healthy communication and thoughts and self-care. And so, gosh, to be able to do this now, I just feel so blessed. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I felt the same way when I heard you speak, actually.
Oh, good.
And I feel so blessed because I've never met you, Dr. Lowe. This is the first time, but I've always felt, because we refer to your books and we refer to your podcast, and I just always feel like the three of us are on the same page and like we're a team, even though we don't know each other. So I love that you're here today.
And I love the work you're doing as well. You guys have such a great job, and kudos to you. As I was telling you guys before the show started, I am so excited about this new platform you guys are offering your services and sharing ministries in, because it's just wonderful. And for Orthodox people to take on that level of sharing the light is fantastic. I'm so excited for you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And so first of all, I want to talk about your new book, Renewing You. It's wonderful, wonderful. Tell us how it came to be. I think it's such a neat project.
Well, thank you. We are so excited. It finally came into fruition. It's been in the works, or it was in the works for about 5 years. But really, my husband and I sort of always worked together, combining our ministries for a number of years, whether it was in sermons or with my private practice clients or on youth retreats we were doing. And so we had sort of always had the conversation, but the book was really born, I would say, out of the trial that we faced when our dads were both diagnosed with cancer about a couple weeks apart. And really it started with trials because we were in our own. And really the importance of staying connected to God became a very real and almost visceral need that we both shared in our soul. And we began writing about that. And then it kind of became about self-care. We started writing about that because we realized that self-care and stillness was no longer sort of like a luxury or something we'll get to. It became a necessary piece of our existence. And then our relationship, we wrote about relationship because when you face trials in the world or just in daily life, you realize how important it is to have good tools to keep your relationship strong, whether that's with your children, your family, or your own spouse. And so really a lot of that chapter was sort of born out of that. And the majority of the book, I would say, was born out of that. We sort of collaborating constantly throughout the year. And it became kind of helpful as a coping method for us because we needed a place to put our words and our experience on paper with what we were going through, because it was such a sustained period of time that we were battling all of this constantly. And so that was really what the book was born out of.
Yeah, and it's become for me a wonderful resource. I was telling Cynthia, this is something I've been able to share with my kids, my adult kids, as, you know, speaking of, you know, this last year, these, you know, the trials and the necessity now. It's not a luxury, like you said, it's a necessity to tap into that source of stillness and strength. And so it's such a great resource, written in such approachable language and yet such profound truths. And so I know we've been able to share that with our members. I'm using it I lead our youth group at teens, and I've been using it for that. So I just feel like we are kindred spirits when it comes to, you know, living with simplicity and intention. And it's very comforting and encouraging to us to see our thoughts, you know, reflected in your beautiful work. So thank you.
Yeah, you guys talk so much about really values-based decisions and intentionality and kind of cultivating the way you want to live in your daily life. And that's kind of, you know, again, like you said, we're so like-minded, we're completely on the same wavelength. And so much about what we're trying to do through your ministry, through ours, is about intentionality, because how do you live a values-driven life if we're not intentional? It takes so much effort on our part for our soul to line up with where our body is going in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's been wonderful because for our membership, Molly alluded to this a minute ago, but our January deep dive was on renewal. And she pulled a lot of things from your book because it was so applicable to going deeper with the people we coach and the membership and everything. So it's really right there with intentionality and starting the new year off right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And in your book, you've talked a lot about renewal in a lot of different aspects, from your mind and victory over your vices and everything. But you touched on something a little while ago that I really want to hone in on today, and that is renewal via self-care. And so what does that look like, secular self-care, compared to how we look at it as Orthodox Christians?
So that is such a beautiful, the way you sort of said that. I just love that, secular versus the way we approach it as Orthodox Christians. And just sort of in a nutshell, I would answer that self-care as Orthodox Christians is doing things in order to glorify God through my daily life, right? That I set myself up to better put on his character in everything that I do, versus sort of more of a secular approach might be to glorify me, right? I'm just sort of seeking my joy or my happiness, and it kind of ends there. There's no gain that I'm seeking because I've done that. And so that's really the way we look at it. And I mean, we sort of see self-care as affecting everything we do. I mean, everything. If we don't attend to our bodies and our minds, I almost feel like the soul is imprisoned. It's completely compromised because it's housed in this turmoil. And how do we live our purpose, use our strengths when we are weighed down by burdens that are depleting us, that we have no reserve left to give toward that greater purpose that God designed us for? And I think that's something that unites all of humanity. And in 2020, I think we could certainly all see this, but it is that we all have the capacity to experience emotional distress and suffering in some way. We are all burdened by things we experience daily in our lives, in our relationships with our children, our worries, but then by things in the world. I mean, look at 2020. It has completely turned us, what were already stressed worlds, upside down and multiplied it by 10. And so that universal nature of suffering and distress, it was already there. but how we react to it and how much it affects our life does differ from person to person. And that's the part that we can regulate by taking care of ourselves, right? And stress signals are almost invisible. We don't even know what signals God designed our body with to alert us, right? Headaches, exhaustion, burnout, agitation, irritability, moodiness. So many people come into my office and say, I think I have depression. And I say, I think you're overworked. It's like, we've come to sort of think that there's something wrong with us when really we haven't really been intentional about caring for our bodies at all.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Can you give us some examples of that as well? I would love to hear some of your practical. What does that look like? I think there's a lot of misconceptions about,
I like to think of it as putting myself back on my own radar, right? And I sort of have a radar for everything going on around me, every need, everything that's out of place, everything that my work is calling me toward, my children's needs, the soccer games that I have to sort of set up, what's for dinner. But it's putting myself back on my own radar and refocusing some of that attention, not all of it, but some of it back onto my own needs. Committing to life-giving practices that keep me whole. That's really how I look at it. And if I value, so think of it this way, if you value your health, that has to be something that you devote time to, just like you would devote time to other non-negotiables in your life. Or if you value your home, like you're filled with less ministry. What a powerful and centering place for our souls to be. If we value our home, then we have to set some time aside for that every single day to make it a non-negotiable that I devote time toward. And I sort of think of it like even 10 minutes a day is enough to reset, right? If I can devote 10 minutes a day to just carve out time to check in with myself, how am I doing? That's the first question I ask myself. How am I doing? What's overwhelming my spirit right now? Is there any tension anywhere in my body? And if so, why is it there? What am I carrying around with me? And what feels out of balance, right? And we don't often stop to really reflect in that time because we're so connected to the outside. Our radar is everything that demands my attention outside myself. So that 10 minutes is the pause to go within and figure out what's out of balance and what's one step that I could begin taking to get me there. That might even be that I'm agitated, I'm tense, and I'm exhausted. So maybe my small commitment is going to bed at a decent hour tonight. That becomes self-care. I notice there's a stress that's weighing on me, something I've procrastinated and haven't dealt with. So what's the one step I can do? I'm going to problem solve what's creating that stress, not tomorrow, but now. I'm going to sit with it for a few minutes. Or maybe I'm overburdened because I've overscheduled myself. I've said yes to 19,000 things when there was only room for, 18,000. And so I'm going to decide next week to not overcommit and to say no. But those are sort of in real time decisions that we make because we've reflected, because we've paused. So I like to think that it begins with just 10 minutes a day to really check in and reflect on where am I not at peace and decide on one thing that matters and start there. It's really that small because big commitments, as we all know, are hard to stick with, right? Very hard to stick with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love what you're saying because in my private practice, I work with so many women, I would probably say half of which tell me that they were so busy raising their kids that they didn't pay attention to their own health. And because of that, they're suffering now. Because at the time, it seemed like it was selfish, like they had to give 100% of themselves to their kids and not even think of themselves because that was somehow a disservice to being a mom or something. But now they're suffering the consequences. So to bring that in early in your life is so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I always say, really connect it to a value. So I do hear that from moms a lot that, but this is the time I have to devote toward my children. I only have them for this amount of time. And I always say, yeah, but right, how much better are we when we're with them, when we have devoted that time to ourselves, right? A lot of moms are short, impatient, they're snapping, they're overreacting, they're not emotionally present. So they're sitting down with a child and they're not even hearing what they're sharing. And I share that story everywhere I go, where I had that moment with my own daughter when I realized she was talking and she was sharing. And I didn't even know the color outfit she had on, even though I had looked at her. I didn't remember what she had told me, even though she had told me a huge story. I couldn't even tell you what she was feeling, even though she's very animated and emotionally expressive. It wasn't until I sort of tuned in and re-registered and reset and said, you know, no, I wasn't listening. I need you to start again. And I could see her animated. I could see her cute little outfit that she just worked so hard to pick out. I saw her rosy cheeks. I saw the light of her eye. It was a whole different experience. And so that is what I share with moms, that listen, this small amount of time that you do carve out for yourself, that replenishes you, the thing you've been ignoring and the thing that you've been wishing you had time to do, makes you better. And when you connect it to a value you already have, you're much more likely to stick to it, right? Even something like exercise. Well, I'm much more likely to stick to that if I value being a mom, because I know that when my kids come home, I'm set up to be present with them, to be not so agitated, and to really be my best self.
Yeah, I love that's such a good way to look at it. Being present. I think that's huge, is being present where you're at, for your connections, for your to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. You have to be present. And you know, when things are difficult, when things feel, your schedule, like last year, like 2020, when things feel chaotic and uncertain, you know, one thing we sometimes hear is, why bother? Like, why bother setting goals? Why bother? It just feels like naive. It feels almost, you know, selfish, like we said. You know, and now I can think of course, like 100 reasons why you absolutely should. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about how specifically tending to ourselves can help us navigate tough times with hope and love and peace.
Absolutely. I mean, really, I love what you're saying, because I always like to think that unhealthy emotions thrive in unhealthy bodies. I mean, listen, they thrive anyways, but they thrive much more in unhealthy bodies. I mean, think about it this way. We are much more likely to give the benefit of the doubt to somebody who's upsetting us when we're well rested. That same situation can happen when we are end of day, completely depleted, and we are judgmental. You can hear yourself being judgmental. And how is the Holy Spirit going to work in your life if you shut him out, right? You sort of say, there's no room for you here. And so really, overthinking is so compromised by stress that if we don't take the time to sort of nurture our body, our brain is not set up for success, actually. It floods pretty quickly. We see escalating anger, even, like I said, judgment. I see judgment, you know, at night, you go to bed in the morning, it's not there. You have a completely different perspective in the morning. And so it's interesting, because the Bible talks a lot about this, and sometimes the scripture is misinterpreted, but, you know, never let the sun set on your anger. And a lot of people interpret that as, oh, well, you know, I should never go to bed if I'm upset. And I always say, hey, please go to bed and wait till the morning to discuss it, because it's going to go a lot better. And so I think scripture was really sort of saying, not go to bed with a lot of judgmental thought and a lot of righteous anger, but a situation is not necessarily going to be solved well when you are burdened and when you are compromised. The brain is just not capable of it. And I always say God set us up perfectly for success if we nurture and take care of that body that houses our soul. And so we really have to make space between ourselves and our feelings. And in that space, we're able to better name what we're feeling, identify it, and kind of discern what I want to do with it. We can't do any of that when we are completely and utterly depleted.
Yeah. And I think I heard you say too, that as a clinical psychologist in your practice, you see a lot of people coming in with issues and things they want to work through that were probably stress induced. Would you say that?
Yes,
A lot of them?
absolutely. Yes, it pushes us. A lot of people, stress happens when we push ourselves past the edge of capacity. And that's really what's happening in the world today, is that we are actually encouraged to live beyond capacity. We were never meant to thrive that way. And we were never meant to live that way. I mean, you think about the Sabbath rest. We don't have a Sabbath rest anymore. You think about how often Jesus went outside the walls of this city to just sit alone in stillness. I mean, he sat on a mountain all night. He went in the desert 40 days. I mean, he wasn't the only person who did this. We don't do that at all. We can hardly get outside for 40 minutes. And so we are mostly operating at the edge of capacity, and that's when symptoms happen. That's when headache happens. That's when we have chronic fatigue. We have joint pain. We have all these sort of subtle indicators that God gives us to say, hey, pay attention, slow down, back up, make some room for me to operate within your soul. And when we do that, and we sort of set aside that time for stillness and set aside even a morning routine of reading, the epistle reading, the gospel reading, and one simple devotion. I mean, that's maybe 12 to 15 minutes, but what a reset that does for our soul. It allows us to be intentional with our entire day. We hear a message that we probably needed to hear. And if I don't understand it, I'll go look it up. Because sometimes, we don't always understand, what is this gospel reading message? What is that even talking about? Well, our study Bible helps. So take a minute, go look it up and get the explanation, because it's probably something that God is inserting in your life that you're going to need. And what a reset for your week. You know what to stay grounded on. You took care of your body enough to do that. And then we sort of magically, we have a better week, but it wasn't really magical. It was the intentionality of making him the center and slowing down enough to listen to the convictions that he places on our hearts in moments just like those.
Yeah, I love that part of that book when you're talking about slowing down enough to hear how he's trying to speak to you, whether it be through disappointment or connections with someone that you come into contact with. It could be your body giving you clues you need to slow down, and you have to be that present-minded to hear him caring for you in that way. It's such a loving thing. He gives you so many nope, just pivot, change direction here, and but you have to be present. If you're constantly looking for another shoe to drop, or if you're not in the moment, you can't hear or tap into, it's very soothing to feel like he's with me all day, minute to minute,
When we are task focused, we don't hear that. They say that a mind at rest tends to wander, and it does, because it is when we leave the task and we enter something even like exercise. For me, it is on a run, it is on a walk where the convictions are there. My mind opens up and I can hear everything, and I can see everything that I was needing to see throughout the week that I might have missed. And I can hear it and I say, thank you, God. It becomes gratitude for all the blessings I see, for the pivots he told me to make, for the reaction I had when I didn't even realize I should have had it. And so it is that leaving my computer and entering that restful state where my mind opens up and you see things so clearly. And so I always tell people you have to discover what that is for you. Where does the mind open up, and where does stillness happen? Where is it free to wonder? And that might even happen in church. And people get scared of that too. Like, well, I feel so bad in church because I'm distracted. Hey, listen, that's probably a place your mind needed to go. If you felt something in church and you found yourself wandering to a place, bring it back in prayer, because perhaps that's where you needed to go. Something you've been ignoring. So it happens in church too. But I think everyone has to find that place where they are still from tasks and alive in their mind and their soul.
Beautiful.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned morning routine, because later in the show, we're actually talking about morning routines. So that was the perfect segue for the rest of the show.
That's great. I love morning routines.
Oh, we do
So
too.
do
We are big fans of the morning routine.
Well, it was such a pleasure to have you on, Dr. Lowe. If people wanted to find out more about your ministry and what you do, how would they get in contact?
Oh, sure. We have a website, thelows.com. We have an interesting spelling to our last name. If you haven't seen it, it's Louh, thelows.com. And on the website, we have a subscribe button where you can even put in your email and subscribe to our daily encouraging, inspirational message, just a little tidbit. Again, part of that, the inspirational messages actually are born out of the morning routine, where we sit down with the epistle reading, the gospel reading, devotion, and the mind opens up, and that's where the message comes from every day. So if you want some encouragement throughout your week, you can put in your email under subscribe on the website and receive that. There's also a blog. And there's more information on our book and our podcast. So we welcome you to the website, and hopefully you'll find something that gives a little light into your daily life.
That's terrific. And are you licensed to work with people outside of Florida, or are you only in Florida?
Yes, I am licensed to work outside of Florida as well. So I definitely welcome those calls. And if it's an appropriate fit for telemedicine, that's certainly something we can talk about too.
Wonderful. What a great resource. Thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely.
I know that writing books,
You
being
know.
on podcasts, it's a lot of work. We know. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys are doing the same work, and I'm encouraged, and I can't wait to hear all of your new video podcasts. I'm so excited about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, come back.
Bye-bye.
Come back for sure.
Look forward to it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Isn't she wonderful, Cynthia? I
She
could
is.
listen to her all day.
She's inspiring. I almost feel like we could have her on every single month.
I
talking
know.
about a
Oh my
different topic.
goodness. For real, it's true. You know, her book, I cannot recommend it enough. I've used it with my own adult children. I've been, read passages to them as I, read from it for myself, share it with anybody who is really looking to pursue wellness, just for their body, mind, and soul. So yeah, it's a really good one. I'm so glad she was able to join us today.
Me too. Me too. Beautiful book, beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
So Molly, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I know you set a fitness goal for the first quarter of this year with the weights. How many years in your past have you set like a resolution or goal around getting fit?
Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Probably, I don't know, how old am I? Like 30 years, I would say. I mean, I've tried every type of trend in fitness, just get that 3-week mark and tend to burn out. So yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that I have tried many, many times to set physical fitness goals for myself, not actually made those happen. What about you?
Oh, Molly, first of all, you shouldn't be embarrassed, because being in, that's my life, is talking to people about their health and their fitness and everything. I mean, it's universal. And I've made the same goals in the past, where I've joined a gym in January, and come February, March, the money was completely wasted. So This is not unusual. And that's why we brought Kosmos McLean on today. Let me just tell everyone a little bit about Kosmos before we bring him in. He's a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. He specializes in Christian health. Throughout his entire adult life, he's been fascinated with the creation of the human body and soul, and is dedicated to understanding how to achieve balanced health. His maturing approach as a health pro sees that not only one health component is the answer, but the combination of them all. It includes spirituality and mindset, strength and power, mobility and flexibility, endurance and conditioning, nutrition, rest, and recovery, to which he's termed the 6 pillars of holistic health. So without further ado, Let's welcome Kosmos. Well, welcome, Kosmos. It's so good to have you here.
Oh, good to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today, because as Molly and I were just talking about, so many people set an intention around getting fit in the new year. And usually by the third week or so, I think studies show that's when their intentions go out the window. But I think a lot of it is because people think that getting fit as a resolution is just something that's expected of them, and they don't really understand the importance of it. So can you talk about the importance of it, first of all?
Yeah, well, mainly we have to look at the motivator for us. Fitness in of itself. Why are we motivated to do it? So this, and we see this more than ever in these days that we're in, fitness is your number one disease prevention tool, along with nutrition, right? So it can be fun, challenging, community building, it presents a learning curve, but ultimately it's why am I motivated to do it, and why am I set at doing it? And as I, contemplated the whole idea behind resolutions, and especially the New Year's resolution, it's a phenomenon as why do we always put so much precedence on the new year, right? It marks a change of the calendar. But the great thing of being Christians is that we can start anytime we want, even in the twinkling of an eye, we can renew ourselves. And Christ tells us that come to him, you who are burdened, and I will give you rest. So even with things with activity, we can very easily, with one quick movement of the heart, make a change. So we need to balance this annual change in the year, but also know that life is falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up. So if we want to make a change, we can start at any time, and there's no perfect execution of any plan, no matter how dedicated you are and motivated you are. There's always going to be downfalls, and we just have to get up and know with hope we can change any split second.
Absolutely. And I know that you and I are both of the same mind when we consider being fit as a spiritual practice. So can you talk a little bit about why we think that?
Well, absolutely. And we've spoken before, and I'll speak about it again. A very amazing quote that I uncovered from an article from St. Nectarios of Aegina from the early 1900s. And he wrote an article on exercise, which of course has been translated to English. And quote, "Wherefore by fitness achievable athletic vigor is not sought, nor indomitable and untamable muscle strength, but the strengthening of physical power towards the ready satisfaction of the demands of the spirit and the fulfillment of its prescribed tasks. For the intended purpose of exercise is not to promote athleticism of the sportsman, but men perfectly formed, capable of all endeavors, which is why exercise makes one most ready for the games and industrious through appropriate pains. Thus, the middle path of exercise is to preserve prudence, namely the harmonious growth of the powers of the soul and body, as well as sovereignty over the body in order to be ready to fulfill the journeys." So this is packing a lot. There's tons in here to take from this, but it really shows how each complements the other. And as Orthodox Christians, we should have a huge motivator every day, because we do not live just for instant gratification, but for divine consolation. And everything ties into our journey, our struggle, and how we can perform our daily tasks. So if we can harness the motivator, which is to try our best to show Christ that we love him, even though he loves us infinite times more, but also through trying every day to love him and be capable for the tasks, to follow the commandments, then we will stay a lot more motivated because we have a divine purpose, right? It's not just the pressure of looking good, or being ready for the wedding, or being ready, for the summer, and I'm not saying that we always think in vanity, but a lot of times it's easy to think of the instant gratification. We're kind of conditioned to think that, but we need to harness as well the true purpose of why we're doing something, to be active and be capable for spiritual and physical demands every day.
Yeah, well, that was a beautiful quote. And like you said, there's so much packed in there. It just makes me think again what I'm always reiterating, and that this life, this body, is a gift that God gave us from conception, but it's a gift that still belongs to him. So he may have given it to us, but we need to be good stewards of it because it belongs to him. It's almost like a form of worship, taking care of it because we're taking care of his property, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about for the people who may have made resolutions or first quarter goals around getting fit, what are some tips that you have?
Well, I find oftentimes it's about what is the expectation that I'm setting for myself or one is setting for themselves. And also it takes digging, right? If we find that we've, you know, quote unquote failed, I'm not trying to be too abrasive, but if we've set resolutions and, we kind of beat ourselves up, oh, maybe this time around, maybe this year, it's have I set something realistic for myself? And part of our Christian struggle is uncovering in our heart, what am I dealing with? What is my biggest passions? What are things that kind of like understanding ourselves, right? That's part of our calling, to fully understand ourselves through God's grace. So we need to sometimes dig a little at the layers within ourselves, right? And we need to find what is the main why, right? The why factor or the X factor. This takes some emotion. This even takes sometimes being a little bit hard on ourselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to be realistic. This, for example, I've had clients in the past that their main motivator is the pressure put on them from family, from young, right? Maybe they have a prestigious family, they all look a certain way, they have to present themselves a certain way socially. So it's not that they just want to look good. It's that he or she is trying to live up to the expectation of their family, which is a ton of pressure. Or the example of the classic wedding example. I need to look good, not just in my dress, but there's a lot of social pressure, right? And as Christians, we have the motivator to actually be fit for our daily task and flow. So let's be realistic with ourselves. How do I set an expectation, a specific goal? Can I measure it? Am I giving myself enough time to actually achieve that? And know that it's not all or nothing, right? We cannot, wine takes time with very good ingredients. So the biggest thing is setting a realistic expectation, learning from our failures in the past and building on that, and know that in Christ, like I said, we can renew every day. So let's not get discouraged and get hung up that if I don't achieve this in a month, I'll wait till the next year. We can change every day and make attempts every day. And I just want you to be empowered to do that for yourself every day. Nothing is out of reach, and especially in Christ.
Right. Right. And I love what you said. You have to give yourself grace. So you may be working out for a certain reason or have certain goals or certain miles you want to run or something. But if you don't make it, that's okay, because this is like the classic case of the journey is really the experience, not the destination.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to define the person. I mean, some of the three main problems that I've noticed among, Orthodox and even other Christian communities is three main problems. There's the overemphasis of just the spiritual, especially for Orthodox. We have, the ascetic examples of the saints, and that, we can tend to lean heavily spiritual and neglect the body. From the pressures of the world, we can emphasize the body so much and forget, the spiritual needs. And then we can actually try to disconnect activity and fitness from our Orthodox walk, because we don't really have, tons and tons of resources on, well, how do I approach it in an Orthodox manner? It's really to glorify God in your activities, but it doesn't have to define you, right? It can be something you're doing to proactively become better, to boost your immune system, to be capable for your daily activities. And these three problems I've noticed or a mixture of the three are what generally imbalances the person's disposition. And I've suffered from it too. So yeah, it doesn't have to define you. I mean, it's just you're doing it because we have an ultimate purpose. Ask myself, do I struggle from any of these three problems? And how do I bring myself back to the middle ground and do it in a way that fits in with my whole lifestyle, right?
Yes,
without the
I love
pressures
that.
of, you know.
Yeah, of other people's expectations on you,
Yeah,
whether it's a spiritual expectation or a physical expectation. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I really valued this interview with you today. I'm so glad you came on as a guest because I think that you have such a good balance between physical and spiritual, and especially from an Orthodox Christian perspective, that you're just in a niche that I haven't seen anybody else in, and it's just so needed. So thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for everything you did for My Beautiful Advent, the special exercise videos and everything you did for the community. If it's okay with you, I'd like to use them for My Beautiful Lent also.
Oh, absolutely. It's my joy and my pleasure to do this. Glory to God. Glory to God.
Thank you.
Much
Glory to
strength for
God.
everyone. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And before we go, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Absolutely. Actually, today we officially launched the independent site. You can find us at theofhm.com. We've moved from our Facebook group to our own independent site. And we actually, it was founded, the idea on the three problems that I spoke of a little bit earlier here. And it seeks to be a community where we can build on a virtuous and balanced life, taking what we can learn from the saints and really uplifting each other with support and growing and learning, very practical tools for our day-to-day life with fitness, health, and nutrition. So you can find us there. I'm going to get off here with you and start welcoming people in at the grand launch. And it's my pleasure to be here. Like, I'm very excited for this as well for you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Kosmos, and good luck
Yeah,
with your new site. And I hope everyone
yeah,
goes to it and gets a lot out of it. And again, thank you for everything you do.
yeah. Blessed day. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Molly, isn't Kosmos a treasure? The work he does is so needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I had so many aha moments just hearing him speak. I was like, oh, yep, that makes so much sense. Especially when he talks about our why. I think so much of the time, I know for myself, we talk about all the attempts that we've made over the last 30 years or whatever to, be consistent with our whatever workout routine or healthy eating plan. And so much is sabotaged because our why is off.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know that for myself, like why I'm trying to do these things. And when he talks about it from an eternal perspective and makes it more of a holistic approach, I'm like, yes, that is absolutely the key to being able to consistently work on these things without falling victim to perfectionism.
Exactly, exactly. And the why of, well, because everyone's supposed to be fit, or because people
Right.
say that you're supposed to be fit, or, I mean, that's not going to cut it. That's why you're
Mm-mm.
going to fall off the wagon. You have to really personally connect it. And I know a lot of people connect it with their family. Like I want to dance at my daughter's wedding. I'm not going to be able to do that if I can't, physically get out of my chair and I'm not fatigued and everything. And so a lot of people use their families, their children, their grandchildren, just wanting to be there for them, longevity as their whys. And you know when you hit on the right why, whether it's for exercise or for anything, it elicits an emotional response in your heart, right? It might even bring tears to your eyes. And then you hit on something that's going to make it stick.
Yeah. And I think when you said to the motivation of love, so much of the time we want to make these changes because we don't like something about ourselves. So we're already coming at it from a place of almost shame, and it's very self-focused. But when you're driven by love for the Christ in you, love for the God in you, love, because we're supposed to see the image of Christ in everyone, right? But it's so hard to see it in ourselves and to think I'm going to be a good steward of this temple, to show my love and gratitude for this body I've been given. And because I want to love my family members, I want to be there for them. I don't want to be so exhausted I can't participate in their lives. I want this for my marriage. I want this for the work I'm put on earth to do. I want the energy to do that. Now that's a different kind of motivation,
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
that can keep you, when you stumble, getting back up again,
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed has really helped me with my intentions around exercise are understanding my triggers.
Mhm.
So, you have to know yourself. So, for instance, I know that if I were to just stay home and watch a DVD or a channel on TV or something to get me to exercise, I'm not going to do it. I need somebody somewhere expecting me to show up, whether that's a class or a personal trainer or my tennis team. I need to know that it's an appointment on my schedule with people expecting me. What about you?
Yeah. That's what's so interesting. And again, like you said, you have to know yourself and be honest with yourself, because I am completely opposite. If I have to leave my house, if I have to go bring extra clothes somewhere, get a locker, I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it. Because I even toyed with the idea with the weightlifting of going to the Y. And I had to stop and be like, you know what? The odds of me leaving the house to do that are slim. My husband has a, workout bench in the basement. If all I have to do is go downstairs, I'll do it. So I am completely different, but you have to know yourself and be honest with yourself and make sure you're picking some kind of plan that feeds into your individual makeup.
Exactly.
How you work, what your schedule is, how you're motivated. So that's super important.
Super
Yeah.
important. And then the other thing are triggers. So a classic one is in the morning when you wake up, make sure your exercise clothes are, in my bathroom, they're lying on the tub, the edge of the tub, or someplace where it's a no-brainer. You just go in there and it's not like, oh, am I going to put my exercise clothes on, or am I going to? No, they're right there. You put them on, and that's what gets you to walk out the door. And then another one I used, which is a little unique, but at the same time that I wanted to start my walking routine, I also wanted to stop drinking as much tea as I was drinking all day long. I was realizing I was just having too much caffeine during the day. So I made a deal with myself. If I would go out for a walk, I could have a cup of tea. Couldn't have my tea if I didn't go for a walk. So
There you go.
I started brewing my tea and I'd walk out the door with it. I would have these beautiful walks, prayer walks, as I like to call them, with my tea and experiencing the beauty around me. And it worked. Several years later now, I walk every morning.
Yeah, those little tips are so important. Like you said, like laying your clothes out. I have found that I could never ask myself in the form of a question, should I work out? Because the minute I ask myself that question, the answer is no.
Right.
So I had to stop asking myself, like, get up and just do it, just do the thing. And another thing for me that actually helped me stick with this plan, with a 6-month plan versus a 3-week ability to stick with something, was starting small. So I knew that if I could get my daily walk down for 6 months, that I really made it a habit where I no longer think, should I walk? It's just like, do I brush my teeth? I do it. Then I could add one more thing. I knew that if I tried to say, I'm going to do cardio and I'm going to do weights, that was going to be too much and I was going to not be able to stick with it. So I had to do one thing at a time, be patient, let that habit kind of get ingrained, then add something else. So that was a big one for me, and also accountability. So being part of a group where we are regularly sharing our goals, where, I know I'm going to talk to you regularly and we're going to be talking about goals. And so having other people who were asking me about it, that was, how am I doing with my workout plan? That was another key thing I needed to stick with my goals, And so, that's not only physical. This is how we deal with goals, right, in all areas of our lives. So speaking of, let's get to our talk about productive life. So for this section of our show, we like to answer questions from you. questions that we've heard from our community members, and we could, talk about it together, try to coach you a little bit. So if you ever have any questions that you want to bring to us, please do contact us, and we would love to answer them on the show. So let's talk about the question we are addressing this month. So our question is, I've heard you two talk about how important a morning routine is that includes keeping prayerful silence. My mornings are already packed with other commitments and I can't find the time. What do I do?
I love that question. That's such a good one. It's so common because it depends on season of life, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love, I don't know if the audience knows about Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's a doctor in England, in the UK. He has a podcast, he has a lot of books and everything. And I always remember that he is a conventionally trained MD, but he really works with his patients from a lifestyle perspective. And one woman came into his office, a new patient, and he knew that one of the best things she could do for all of her symptoms that typically a doctor would say, well, take this medication, you have this, you have that. He knew one of the biggest things she could do is have quiet time in the morning and meditate. So he writes a prescription to her to do a meditation every morning. And I think he said for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes or something like that. And she came back to him and she said, Dr. Rangan, I'm a single mom. I have toddlers. There's no way on earth that I can do this. He said, 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. She left his office, came back in 6 months, and she said, oh my goodness, that 5 minutes has made all the difference in my life. That's all it took. And I know you and I don't really teach a traditional meditation practice, but we teach a prayerful silence practice, which has all the same benefits. And 5 minutes, that's really all you can carve out. That's all you need to start with, right?
Yeah. And again, it's looking at your motivation. So it's so funny how we tend to, we hear something like that and our first thought is, how do I perfectly do this thing? I have to do it like, go big or go home kind of thing. Like I need my hour long, it's not a formula. Intentionality is not a formula. It's understanding that, looking at yourself as an individual, like you said, looking at what season of life you're in and making rhythms and little routines that are going to help you procure peace. And, we know I was there. I had 4 kids under 6 that got up at 5:30. I know, it's not like now I have 20, 30 minutes I can devote to that. I probably had about 5 minutes. But sometimes it's not always first thing in the morning. I mean, that's ideal. But if you're in a situation like you're getting up for work, you work a shift where you have to be at work at 5:30, that might not be feasible. But look at the pockets of time that you can redeem. Because that silence, we always need it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I try to redeem it in the car. I try to redeem it when I'm tempted in the grocery store line to pick up my phone instead of just be still, When my kids were little, my youngest daughter especially, would not nap without me. And it used to drive me crazy because I would think, I have so much to do. This is my only time to do this. I got all this stuff to do, but she would not sleep unless I was laying next to her. So finally I surrendered to that and made peace with it. And that was my silent time. Laying next to her, I would breathe in. I would, offer my thoughts up to God, invite Christ into the rest of my day. And that was my prayerful silence. So, a lot of it's understanding that, yes, it's needed. How is it going to work for you?
Exactly. Exactly.
Where can you fit it into your life?
Yeah. And, Dr. Chatterjee knew that the symptoms she was presenting with in his office were stress related. And that's why he prescribed this morning meditation. That's part of a morning routine. But morning routines, like you said, Molly, to your point, look very different depending on what stage of life you're in. So I, obviously at my stage of life, I have a lot of flexibility. My morning routine lasts 2 hours, but it includes prayer, reading scripture, prayerful silence for, I try to do 20 minutes a day. I'm up to 20. It includes going for my walk every morning. It includes stretching. So there are so many ways that a morning routine can present itself depending on where you're at. So Molly, what's yours like?
Yeah, that's true for me as well. You know, as you go through, I always find you have to embrace the season you're in. And every season has its challenges, but also things to celebrate, you know? So I remember when I didn't have the luxury of that morning time, and, you know, the kids were up and I felt like, oh gosh, it's chaotic. That morning time was probably about 5 minutes, but it was so important because I just needed to say, you know, I think it's Gail Hyatt. I heard her say in an interview recently that said, you need to go up before you go out, if that makes sense. So you need to connect first before you open your mouth to speak to your kids, because that's going to be your pause all day long. That's going to be you know, when you connect with Christ, even for those 5 minutes, that's what gives you restraint, self-control from just being, you know, ruled by your impulses, you know. So just, that's why it's so important, because you are rooting yourself to a peace that is bigger than your own. You're opening yourself up. So you're tapping into an eternal stamina and not your own frailties, you know?
Exactly.
And now I can't, you know, now I have the luxury. My kids are older. And it has its own challenges. I think that parenting, if you have teenagers and young adults, you know that your prayer life just skyrocketed, right? I mean, it's different. It's not the physical stress as much, but it is a lot of worry for your kids, you know, and, you know, but there's a lot of benefits too. I mean, a lot of beautiful things about that as well. And one of them is the gift of time. Now I have the time to have a morning routine that looks very similar to yours, actually. I wake up about 6, start my coffee maker, go in for my icon corner, say my prayers, and then I sit on the couch. I do 10 minutes of silence. That's I'm up to, just straight silence. I do the scripture reading for the day, and I do a chapter of edifying book. Right now I'm reading our book club book, Liturgy of the Ordinary. And that's how I start my day. And I journal too. I do journal.
Yes,
so
me too.
That's my morning routine. And I can't imagine my life without it. It is, it's transforms my day.
Yeah. So I think we can both attest that in our own lives, and also based on studies and all of the wisdom out there from people who know that a morning routine can change your life. It's about living intentionally, not just jumping out of bed and off to the races, but actually scheduling in this time for yourself, whether it's 5 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour or 2, whatever you can do at your stage of the life, that can make all the difference in your day. You make better decisions during the day as far as what you're eating and what you're doing. You have better discipline. It's something everyone needs to incorporate, no matter how long you can do it.
And always think quality over quantity.
Yes.
You know, so like if you, you know, are tempted, you want to do your prayer rule and you're like rushing through all of these prayers because you think you need to do a certain amount of time, you know, whereas if you had said one prayer, one morning prayer with your full heart and you're engaged, you know, that's going to stick with you throughout the day differently. So I always try to remember that it's not about quantity, it's about quality, and being completely focused on the amount of time that you do have.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, everyone, keep those questions coming. We love those questions. We love to extrapolate on everything that we know, and help you and teach you. So, Molly, that's it for our second show.
It went so fast again.
I know.
Every time I'm like, what's next? And that's it. But we'll have to now start planning for the next one.
I know. And we already have some guests in mind, so I'm excited about the guests for next time. But in the meantime, there are so many different ways that you can stay connected with this community, For instance, we have a free resource on our website called Greet the Day in Peace. It's one that Molly did, and it is lovely. And it's based, isn't it, Molly, on the prayer of St. Philaret?
Yeah, the morning prayer of Metropolitan Philaret.
Yes.
It's a
yes.
5-day video series, just 5 minutes of reflection. I break the prayer down, kind of take it line by line, and just do a little reflection on that for about 5 minutes. And that will come to your email inbox. So that's one resource that we have.
It's beautiful. And by the way, everyone, I feel like I just need to say this. So often people are contacting us and they're saying that they're not getting our emails. So if you sign up for something like this, or our weekly wellness newsletter, or anything that we're offering, and you don't get emails, make sure you're looking in your promotions folder, your spam folder, your junk folder, because a lot of people are having an issue with our emails going into those folders and they can't find them. So make sure you take a look. And then, of course, is our book club, which we love, right, Molly? And we are currently reading the book.
Yes, we are. That's the one I mentioned before, the Liturgy of the Ordinary, Tish Harrison Warren.
Yes, yes,
Beautiful.
It's very good. She is not Orthodox, but there is so much orthodoxy within those pages that we're really, really enjoying it. So we have quite a few people who have joined this book club. So we're getting together on the 30th of January. Make sure you sign up for that so that you get the email with the link in it. And with that, we're done. It's hard to say goodbye.
Oh, I know. But please do come to our website, join us in other ways. Come to our book club. Any questions that you have, reach out to us, dialogue with us that way. And we will get busy, like you said, preparing for our next show. We have our guests in mind. And if there's ever a topic even that you think, gosh, I'd love to see that covered, let us know that as well. And we will find you someone that we can talk to about it.
Yeah, or even a guest that you'd like to have us bring on.
Sure,
Anything.
Yeah.
This is your show. So we'll do anything we can for you. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Y'all have a blessed month, and we'll see you next month.
Take care.